I don't know how I missed this, but a Republican in the House introduced a resolution for George Santos to be expelled. Did y'all know? I didn't know. Here's the tea.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows: House Resolution 773, providing for the expulsion of Representative George Santos from the House of Representatives. Whereas George Anthony DeVolder Santos, known as George Santos, was elected to represent New York's 3rd Congressional District in the House of Representatives on November 8th, 2022. Whereas after Election Day, it was revealed George Santos lied about a significant portion of his background, including his education and previous employment. Whereas George Santos has a long history of misrepresenting his and his family's connections to major events, including the Holocaust, September 11th terrorist attacks, and the Pulse nightclub shooting. Whereas on May 9th, 2023, George Santos was indicted on 13 counts of wire fraud, money laundering, stealing public funds, and lying on federal financial disclosure forms to the House of Representatives. Whereas a federal grand jury indicted an aide to George Santos's campaign on charges of wire fraud and identity theft for defrauding potential donors by impersonating Speaker Kevin McCarthy's former chief of staff. Whereas on October 5th, 2023, George Santos's former campaign treasurer pled guilty to falsifying campaign finance records, including lying about a $500,000 loan that George Santos claimed to have donated to the campaign himself. Whereas on October 10th, 2023, George Santos was federally charged with an additional 10 criminal counts. Whereas the additional charges were serious in nature, including conspiracy to commit offenses against the United States of America, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, access device fraud, false statements to the Federal Election Commission, and falsifying records to obstruct the commission. Whereas the indictment outlined a vast amount of evidence against Santos, including conversations he held with his former campaign treasurer outlining plans to commit the fraud he is charged with. Whereas these charges indicate that George Santos engaged in a serious financial fraud throughout his 2022 campaign for the House of Representatives. Whereas George Santos stole over $44,000 from donors by charging their credit cards without authorization. Whereas George Santos directly profited from his fraudulent actions, including transferring money to his own bank account to buy luxury items and pay off debt. Whereas George Santos engaged in election fraud throughout his 2022 campaign by deceiving voters regarding his biography, defrauding donors, and engaging in other illegal campaign behavior. And whereas as a result of these actions, George Santos is not fit to serve his constituents as a United States representative. Now there it be resolved that pursuant to Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2, of the Constitution of the United States of America, Representative George Santos be and hereby is expelled from the House of Representatives.
Now, will MAGA Mike see it through? Time will tell.